Welcome. My name is Cassie Rosas Carson. I am the Internship and Professional Development Coordinator for IST Career Solutions. We are located in the academic suite, and that is on the first floor of the Westgate building. So today we're going to be talking about resumes and applicant tracking systems. So anytime that you're uploading a resume for an online application that is using an applicant tracking system, or also what we call ATS. And so we want to pull that into the conversation as it's pretty much taken over the recruiting cycle process. And so to not include it would be missing a really big part of the conversation. I want this to be beneficial for you, so please submit any questions that you have in the chat or Q&A, and I will be monitoring that throughout the presentation. And then also too, I will leave some time at the end for any last minute questions. So we're going to get started with some resume basics. So kind of just going over some basic things about resume. We're going to wrap up with some of the ATS systems and then go from there. So some components of a resume. So the top of the resume, you're always going to want to see contact information, objectives. This is something that is not necessarily required, and it has kind of filtered out of the resume, but with applicant tracking systems kind of taking over everything, it has brought it back to basically being more of a requirement. That is, if you don't have an objective in your resume, an applicant tracking system will actually generate one based on your resume. So it's something you might want to consider to add back into your resume. The next thing on your resume that you want to see is your education, as this is going to be the most valuable part of your resume at this time as you're a student, a new professional. And so we want to make sure that your education is highlighted at the top. From there, it can be professional or project experience. It can be student work and volunteer experience, your skills. It could be honors and awards. This is where the resume is really customizable based on what experiences and what things you've accomplished over your time in college. And so you don't need to have all of these. You want the resume to fit you, not the other way around. So here's a couple examples of some contact information that you can see. There's different formats of how you could format the information, utilizing lines, utilizing the whole top of the page or just the top left of the page. But I want you to take notice of including your LinkedIn, and not just a link, but the whole URL, because applicant tracking systems do not know how to read links. But they do know how to read URLs, and it definitely increases your chances of moving forward in the process by having that on your contact information, but you need to have a strong LinkedIn profile to follow that. You want to make sure that you have your email and your phone number. Depending on the field that you're going into, maybe you want to include a portfolio to utilize some of your work and showing evidence of that work that an employer could take a look at, and you could even refer to in an interview. And notice that you don't see a lot of addresses. That has really kind of transitioned off resumes unless you are job searching in a specific location. Outside of that, I would keep it just to your contact information. From here, you're going to go into either your objective or the education section. So a couple things with the education. You want to make sure that you have our formal name, the Pennsylvania State University, not Penn State. That's a nickname that is fine for educate or the experience section, but you really, for your education, you want to use our formal name. The other thing is, notice that it's University Park, Pennsylvania. It could also be University Park, PA, not State College. That is the city surrounding the university, but the university itself is actually its own city. You also only need to list your graduation month and year. They don't really need to know when you start. They just want to know, when are you going to complete that degree, so that they know what year you are in school, but also when they may be able to offer you a full-time position. The other thing to notice is the BS. You need to make sure that you have Bachelor's of Science, comma, or BS before your degree, not major or anything else, or just the name of the major. If you don't have those key terms, that can really take you out of consideration, because most of the jobs you're applying for, the minimum education is a bachelor's degree. Then you can list any minors that you have, certificates. You can include relevant courses. A lot of this is really optional based on yourself. And then if you did do a study abroad at any point, you can add that as well in that section to highlight that information and a little bit about what you did during that experience. And again, please send any questions that you might have during this presentation. I'd be happy to answer those throughout. So the next thing is going to be your your experience sections. And so you want to make sure that when you're getting into the bullets and you're describing the experiences and what you gained from those experiences, you want to try to quantify and qualify these experiences. This is going to help you with the ATS by utilizing, your tasks and the point of your task, or the results of that work or collaboration or whatever it is that you did, kind of that end. As you can see, performed X and Z resulting in Y. It doesn't have to be in those exact terms, but just kind of stating what these tasks led to or how that might have benefited a company. So anytime you can add some numbers, percentages, it could be money, things like that is really beneficial. And then really adding in, some specifics of softwares that you use, technical skills, soft skills that you use in those different experiences to accomplish some of those goals, not just focusing on the day-to-day task, but thinking about the bigger picture and how it applies to what you're applying to with this resume. Because each resume should be customized to what you're applying for, as it's really hard to make one general resume that's going to fit every single position that you apply to. So these are great areas where you can really add that customization. So for relevant experience, you could format it similarly to this. Anytime you have experience, whether it's student experience, project experience, relevant experience, technical experience, whatever it is you want to, you can really have some nice customization there to really bring some attention to it, especially for some in-person events, really bring up and drive some of the conversation. And how you kind of, cluster the events, it doesn't matter if the, experience, if one's paid or not paid, one's school or one's professional. It's all about the task or the roles that you have that really is that commonality for the organization. So if you want to have like a leadership section and you have a couple student orgs and maybe a project where you're team leader, that could be a great leadership experience. It's really dependent on you. Also too, with things that have, coming out of COVID, if you had opportunities that you applied for, but unfortunately were canceled, you can still highlight that you were able to attain something, even if you weren't able to follow through the experience. It's still valuable to show that you went through the hiring process, and then focus on any more recent experiences from there, whether they're from class, school, student organizations, etc. Notice that for this experience section, you want to include the employer name, your role, the location, and then the months and year. No seasons. You can either spell out the months, or you can also do the number value of the months, but no seasons, as applicant tracking systems cannot read seasons. Also too, for the skills section, this is really important, especially for the College of IST, as we are a STEM college, that companies really want to know about those hard skills that you have. So the hard skills are going to be those computer and technical skills and any language skills that you have. So you can list programs, networking, coding, softwares, all those different things. Even if it's just kind of a basic knowledge, especially for internships or, entry-level positions, they know that you're not at that expert level, but at least if you can show that you have some familiarity or some basic knowledge that maybe they can build on in that experience, is good kind of things that you can include on your resume. So this is potentially how a skill section could be formatted. You always want to separate each of the skills by either bullets or utilizing commas. Otherwise, if you don't have a spacer in between, applicant tracking systems will read it all together. And if a company does not select R and Python, as one, then that's not going to count on that reading of your application. So you want to make sure that you have those separated out in one way, shape, or form. This I just did by inserting the symbols to separate it out, but you can also do a list with commas. You can do one table on your resume, even though applicant tracking systems is something we don't highly recommend. But as long as you only have it in one section, then it is not, it won't air out everything. And this is a good way that you could separate out some of your skill sections and then just take away all the different lines so it shows up similarly as I have it here on the screen. Project section. So as I mentioned this before, you can include your in-class projects. You could even include maybe some side projects that you've worked on, and you do want to format that very similarly to your other experience sections, providing dates, providing the name of the project. If you have a role within the project, you could list that as well. And then a couple bullets about what you did within that role, technical skills that you use, soft skills that you use, etc. So here's one example of a potential format for a resume, just to give you an idea of what it could look like. Seeing that they have the technology related experience that you can kind of cluster all those together. There's a mix of some part-time student organizations, in-class projects. So again, it's not about what the experience is classified as, but what you did in that role. Also too, there's, if you are double major, notice that the degrees are listed separately. And then also too, at the bottom, the additional experiences. So if you want to list some experiences, but you don't want to devote a ton of space on your resume, you can just list them out with having to go into detail into bullets. So a couple different things that you can use for formatting here. Here's another one, really highlighting the education and skills right off the bat, going into project experience and any other experience that you have, including part-time jobs or other things. It doesn't always have to be closely related. So if you do have some part-time jobs that might not be as related as some of your class experiences, then you can kind of filter that more to the bottom of the resume and really pushing up the things that are most relevant to the top of the resume. So a couple last minute tips just in general with resumes is making sure that you are utilizing keywords from the posting that you're applying to. So really utilizing that customization. If they're talking about working in a team, communication, make sure those things are demonstrated throughout your bullets. You can even use like a word generator to copy and paste the posting to see what words are used most within the listing. I always like to just print out the posting, highlight all the things that, I'm qualified to do or have experience doing, and then making sure that all those things are listed throughout my resume. If you can have them in more than one spot, that's always a benefit because it helps to increase that skill. Making sure that you are getting that resume reviewed, especially if you're looking at it a lot, it's hard for you to see some of those detailed things. So always getting a second opinion on it or just another set of eyes. We are happy to do that for you at any point in time, and always make sure that you're sending it as a PDF. So now we're going to get into the applicant tracking systems part of this. So this is the artificial intelligence, the AI that's taking hundreds of applications for each posting and really searching for candidates that are a minimum of 51% match to the posting to push that to either the screening portion of the hiring, maybe pushing it to the recruiters to reach out, depending on what their hiring process is like. So we're going to go over a little bit of what the whole point of an ATS is. So a lot of it is that resume screening, and depending on what the company is utilizing, it can do any of these next kind of steps from there. All of them are going to do the resume screen. A lot of them are going to have that communication with you. So if you've ever gotten those generated, we received your application, or you're no longer being considered for a position, or maybe details of next steps, that's usually coming from that applicant tracking system. Some of them do have the capability of starting the background check up steps, moving forward depending on the requirements of the job. And then they also can facilitate any assessments, so maybe some personality assessments, coding assessments, any other assessments that the company has, or maybe even additional screenings, including any of those kind of pre-recorded interviews you might have seen throughout past applicant processes, where you get that link, you go into a pre-recorded interview, you record your responses, and then it sends it off to the company, and you wait to hear if you then now get to meet with a human in person. So there's many different components that the applicant tracking system can be involved in to kind of make it a little easier and more time saving for the company. So some formatting for the applicant tracking system, going back to the education, I want to highlight a couple of things that I see most common when I'm working with students here at IST, is that a lot of students like to include the College of Information Sciences in their education section, which is completely fine. However, applicant tracking systems do not realize that the college is within the university, as there's Boston College and things like that. They equal them as two separate entities. So if you do want to list both, they need to be on the same line, and there needs to be a comma in between. Notice too that I highlighted the B period, S period. That's so important. I've seen so many students, unfortunately, that missed out on opportunities because they didn't have those two symbols or bachelor's of science. So I want to make sure that you do have that included with your major. Also too, if you do have multiple degrees, you want to list them separately, still under the Pennsylvania State University. And also too, at the student involvement, this is another common one that I see as a header. AIs look for experience. To read that section as experience. So making sure that's in your header is going to really let that AI know that it needs to read this section in a certain way. So switching those out and making sure it doesn't say activities or other things, that it is specific to. So that's why you see in previous examples, project experience, volunteer experience, student experience, etc. So some tips as you're working with the AI, as mentioned before, writing out your bullets where your task equaling in results. You want to make sure that when you are working on your resume, you're not utilizing a template. You're utilizing and creating just through a straight Word document, through spacing, bulleting, things like that, or Google Docs. But whatever you start with, stay with always. Anytime you're making changes to your resume, always go back to that same software and then saving it and sending it as a PDF, and making sure that you're saving that PDF monthly to limit the corruption of the file, because if there's corruption, then it's not going to read the information correctly. A way to see this is if you take the PDF version of your resume, select all the information, copy it, and paste it into Word. If it's a just big paragraph of information, then they're starting to get some corruption within your file. If the formatting stays the same, then you're good to go. You want to make sure that you are consistent with your font. You're not using any other kind of fonts, and you're really staying with some of the most common ones that you see on the next bullet below. That's really just ones that applicant tracking systems have been coded to read best. And you want to make sure that you're not utilizing more than 3 different font sizes. Then that can lead to basically getting scored errors on your resume. Emphasizing the use of experience and your headers again, and make sure that you're not utilizing any tables outside of the skill section, no text boxes, no photos, icons, graphics, or templates. This is not ATS friendly and can make your application invalid and not selected for an opportunity that you might be very qualified for. So as we are talking about resumes, it's really important that even with the applicant tracking systems, it's not the only way that you can stand out in the application process. Attending some of these great events on campus is a great way to stand out and not just rely on the online application, because you can impress someone in person and then they can go check their system and pull out your application. So now that you are going to go home and make all these changes to your resume based on the content today, you might want to think about attending some of these events. So we have some LinkedIn headshots. So you can take that information, put it into your LinkedIn profile, get a headshot tomorrow to go onto it, and you'll be ready to go. We also have a virtual fair that's happening tomorrow. We also have a resume review event, which is really awesome because we have some of our corporate partners like EY, KPMG, all kinds of different ones that are coming here to review your resume. So it's a great way to get that second eye to look at it, but also too, it's a great way to kind of have that one-on-one conversation with an employer in a not very intimidating way. So you can sign up for those resume reviews on our website. The link is at the very bottom. We also have Fall Career Days. The internship day and that is the university-wide fair. Then we have the IST Internship and Career Fair that's September 19th. That is just for IST students, and both of those events are in person. To see the full list of all the companies that are going to be here the next couple of weeks, go to the IST website. And also too, if you need help at any time, we are here to help you. We have 30-minute career coaching appointments you can schedule through Starfish. We do resume reviews during this appointment. We also have some of our diplomats doing resumes throughout the week. And we also have virtual drop-in every Wednesday from noon to 4. Our weekly email is sent Sunday nights from the IST Career Solutions. That's where we highlight any upcoming events, new postings on Nittany Lion Careers, any reminders about the internship, requirement, deadlines, information about that, any additional workshops we're doing. So it's a great thing just to do a 10-second, scan through, mark things that match you, mark it on your calendar, and then delete, go to the next one. We also organize, approve, and facilitate the IST 495 internship requirement and the course that goes along with it. So if you have any questions, we are the people that you want to reach out to. And we also do interview prep and anything else that pertains to career internship. That is what we're here for. So as we close out, this is a great time to type in any questions that you have in the Q&A or the chat as I just kind of wrap things up. If you have a moment, we'd always appreciate some feedback. You can scan the QR code on the screen. We have a hot topic that's coming tomorrow, and that's going to focus on career fair prep for in-person events tomorrow at 4:30, and they'll also be virtual. You can also reach us at careers@ist.psu.edu if you have any questions at any point in time. I highly recommend that you follow us on Instagram just to stay up to date with any great events that are going on in our office, advising, our inclusion office, student engagement, but also too, we highlight some great success stories from past internships, alumni. So really great way just to see what's going on and not miss anything in the college. And then of course, our weekly email that comes out every Sunday night. So I hope that you found this information extremely helpful. We are here to help you at any time. I'm going to stop the recording and then go to any questions.